Hey everybody, welcome to That's Good Broncos. I'm Brandon Perna, NFL expert, fluffer, and football Scientologist. Today, I'm breaking down the Broncos-Bears matchup, and luckily for the Broncos, the Bears just happen to be playing their best fucking football of the season. And as usual, I will compare the position groups, award the superior group a point or player, and let's just pray that these predictions get more accurate. Because the last 2 weeks I've been wrong. This early 11 o'clock game between the Broncos and the Bears is in the windy city of Chi-Town, aka home of Mike Ditka and Michael Jordan's love child. Thus, the Bears get the traditional half point for home field advantage. Gary Kubiak versus the beloved John Fox. John Fox is on a 2-game win streak with a hot offense. Gary Kubiak is on a 2-game losing streak, playing a backup quarterback after questionably starting an injured Peyton Manning. Local Chicago media officially reported that Foxy does indeed have a giant hard-on aimed at beating the Broncos and the man who fired him, John Elway. Half point for Foxy. Brock Osweiler, man, that sounds weird, versus Jay Cutler, which also sounds weird. Here's something that hasn't been said frequently. Jay Cutler is balling out 100% to the max. It's not said that often because his play has been sporadic ever since he was drafted, and because I think I'm the first guy to say balling out 100% to the max. I want to believe in Brock Osweiler, but we have no idea who he is as an NFL quarterback. We just don't have the sample size for a proper evaluation. We do know that against the Chiefs last week, Osweiler went 14-24 for 146 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception, and had another interception dropped in his first series. The interesting thing is, in the same number of attempts, 24, Cutler went 19-24 with 3 touchdowns and 258 yards passing last week. 2 of his short passes turned into 80-plus yard touchdowns. This comes after a 2 TD and 345-yard performance against the Chargers. I don't think he will be as efficient against the Broncos defense, but I have to give Cutler at least a half point, as we still know very little about a Brockwork Orange. Running backs versus running backs. I have 3 names for you: Jeremy Langford, Matt Forte, and Kadeem Carey. 3 Bears running backs playing very well. Matt Forte returned to practice this week, but I don't even really care if he plays. Jeremy Langford is the dangerous running back right now. He had 182 total yards against a St. Louis defense. He had 142 the week before, and like Matt Forte, he is a dangerous threat catching the ball out of the backfield. That's a good weapon to combat an aggressive pass rush. I won't even mention the Broncos running backs because I feel like they continue to be non-factors. I know the O-line is bad, but Barry Sanders performed behind some bad O-lines. At some point, running backs, you just gotta make some damn plays. Full point for the Bears. Broncos receivers versus Chicago secondary. The Broncos, Emmanuel Sanders, is beat up, and if I'm Gary Kubiak, I force Sanders to sit and take the week off. He's not helping the offense injured right now, and I believe Benny Fowler can cover for him. I also like that Osweiler found Cody Latimer a couple times, who looks like he can do a lot with the ball in his hands. The Broncos' saving grace this Sunday may be that the Bears secondary or defense as a whole isn't amazing. Second-year player Kyle Fuller and Peyton Manning Super Bowl Steeler Tracy Porter locked down the corners for Chicago. Bryce Callahan is their nickel flipper, Antrell Roll and Adrian Amos are the safeties. Adrian Amos, cousin, of course, of Tori Amos, is the best player on the back end. He's good in coverage and even better in run support. Not that the Broncos running backs will make it past the first level. However, I think with the change at QB, Denver's receivers will have more time to get open and will have success against this Chicago secondary. Give me a half point for the Broncos. And yes, those are their first points for the day. Broncos O-line versus Bears front 7. No surprise here. The Broncos O-line is not getting better. In fact, their play has declined over the last 2 weeks, and Ryan Harris at left tackle has to be one of the lowest rated players at his position in the league. I do applaud Evan Mathis because with no help on his left or his right, he continues to be the lone bright spot on the line. If the Bears' best pass rusher, outside linebacker Pernell McPhee, does not play, the Broncos line just might have a decent week. Even though Pernell and Perna, have similar sounding names, I advise him to let that ailing knee rest one more week. That's my Perna to Pernell advice. The other noteworthy player for Chicago is rookie nose tackle Eddie Goldman, who's doing a good job against the run while also blowing up pockets like Amelia Clark and Scarlett Johansson teaching sex ed classes for high school boys. Oh. Jenkins, Acho, McClellan, Jones, Houston, Unrein, former Bronco Lamin Barrow. These linemen and linebackers are all average players. Will Sutton at right end has had 2 very good games in a row. He won't be challenged by Ryan Harris or Tyler Columbus, so I give the Bears, even though they're not extremely impressive in this area, 0.5 advantage. Tight ends versus tight ends. I really think we'll see the Broncos' tight end production increase this week. Osweiler found Vernon Davis twice against Kansas City, and I believe he'll get them involved more frequently, especially on bootleg plays. The problem for this matchup is the Bears have a top 5 tight end in Martellus Bennett, and the emergence of Zach Miller, who has 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games and 107 yards against the Rams. We also know that tight ends have found the end zone against the Broncos this season. The Bears have to be excited about the Miller-Bennett tandem, especially since Bennett is willing to do the dirty work catching most of his short passes in the middle of the field for the tough yards. Half point for the Bears. Bears offensive line versus Broncos front 7. This is looking pretty damn grim right now for the Broncos in terms of the score, but the defensive front 7 for Denver can save the day once again. The Broncos will get a full point advantage, and this is why. The Bears' offensive line is nearly as bad as the Broncos' offensive line. I'm not ignoring a great performance by them last week against the Rams, but they benefited from 2 80-plus yard plays that I see as offensive outliers. Their best offensive lineman is their center, Matt Slauson. Their worst big man is Jay Leno Jr. at the left tackle position, who is actually rated lower than Ryan Harris, so congratulations. Going against 2 top 5 front 7s in a row will take its toll on the Bears offensive line. I'm looking for Von Miller and Shaq Barrett to wreak havoc against 2 tackles that have struggled mightily in pass protection. That is what will win the game for the Broncos. On the D-line, Vance Walker and Antonio Smith are both ailing with injuries. That could be a significant blow to the defensive line rotation. So look to Kenny and Nicky to get more playing time this weekend. Edge rushing and running back containment coming from Brandon Marshall, Danny Trevathan, and our outside linebackers must be consistent this weekend. Do not let me down, defense. I gave you a full point, but you still got to go out there and fucking earn it. Bears receivers versus Broncos secondary. The Chicago Bears, in my opinion, have the second best wide receiver in the NFL behind Julio Jones with Alshon Jeffrey. The man is fun to watch, but like Emmanuel Sanders, he's banged up right now. He played against St. Louis, but was contained to 3 catches for 23 yards. I'm guessing he'll play this weekend despite his groin and shoulder injury. The question is, will he power through vicious hits like T.Y. Hilton, or will TJ Ward and Darian Stewart intimidate him into a mediocre performance? If Jeffrey was 100% healthy, I'd be worried for the Denver secondary because they haven't faced anyone this season as dominant as Alshon. Former Bronco Eddie Royal is still hurt, which means third-year receiver Marques Wilson will get a lot of the snaps. Wilson has been quiet the last 4 weeks and will remain quiet facing Harris, Roby, or Talib. The Bears' slot receiver, Mark Mariani, isn't a huge receiving threat, but he's pretty good as a run blocker. That's probably why they've had success springing big plays lately. I think Aqib Talib's return is huge for the Broncos defense, and I will look for them to get at least 1 pick this weekend. If Jeffrey was healthy, I'd only give the Broncos a half-point advantage, but he's not, so they get a full point. Special teams and X factors. In the least anticipated comparison, we go to special teams. Cairo Santos murdered the Broncos last week with an amazing 5 field goal performance. I'll still take Brandon McManus over Robbie Gould, even though he's 20 for 23 on the season. Then you have Britton Colquitt and Pat O'Donnell, and no real threat in the return game. Special teams is a wash. And that's why I'm turning to the X Factor, Brock Osweiler. This season, we've seen teams win with big changes. The Dolphins won after naming Dan Campbell head coach. The Colts won after removing Pep and inserting Chud. I believe the Broncos can do the same thing with the big switch. And I'll bet Brock Osweiler doesn't throw 4 interceptions. So, half point for the Broncos, Brock X Factor. The score says the Bears will win. That's what the score says. And the score is dictated by recent performances from both teams. But I'm ignoring the score. You can identify with the score if you desire, but I believe the Broncos get this win. My gut said KC would win last week, and I ignored it, and I can no longer ignore my gut. And it's telling me Denver gets a win. The Broncos have been playing wounded all year long with an anemic offense. The defense led them to a 7-0 start and played well against Kansas City despite being put in precarious positions. I think they will get some help from the offense this week, in addition to knowing how to prepare for an Adam Gase offense that they practiced against the last few years. Broncos win this one 24-19 or something like that. Thanks for watching another episode of That's Good Broncos. Make sure you subscribe here or the Broncos will lose. Did you hear that? The Broncos will lose if you don't subscribe and share this prediction episode. Give me a follow on Twitter at Brandon Perna. And come on, Brock. We're trusting you. We're really trusting you.